Each evening for about a week, I played Kentucky Route Zero, and almost every sitting I fell asleep. That's not a joke, that's not hyperbole. I literally dozed off. I guess that could sound appealing, but for a lot of people, it probably won't. KR Zero is a slow burn, surreal, dialogue focused adventure across the back roads of rural America. A literal twilight soon gives way to a more figurative one that becomes the subject matter at the core of the game. The twilight of small American businesses and the shrinking communities that revolve around them. You travel around a fictional area of Kentucky, encountering odd characters and strange happenings, all to complete one last delivery for an antique dealer. There's not much in the way of puzzles. You walk around, examine things, and talk to people, and that's about it. The atmosphere is thick here. The ethereal soundtrack and moody visuals coalesce to give the game a dreamlike feel, literally if you end up falling asleep like I did. It's absolutely a relaxing title, if nothing else. The game's major nod to interactivity is how you get to shape various characters' backgrounds and outlooks via dialogue choices. Rather than having much of an effect on what the characters do in the story, you get to decide who they are to a degree, how they've chosen to reflect on their pasts and interpret events in their lives. While that may or may not sound like an exciting prospect to you, I think it's at least fitting for such a surreal game open to interpretation, with its weird imagery and wild series of events. The pasts of these characters get to be just as subjectively interpreted by the player when you make these choices as the present experience you're getting to observe. There's a lot of dialogue to read, and to be honest, I entered each area or vignette of this game kind of disinterested in whatever was around me and the people I was meeting. By the end of each portion, though, I was usually invested, as the mood had enveloped me and the quirky writing had taken a turn for the intriguing. One of the highlights for me was a short interim chapter set in a bar, which was fairly mundane to begin with, but slowly morphed into something more interesting by the end as I let it play out. I'll say though that a lot of players probably aren't going to have the patience for this, and for me this game falls into similar territory as the Silver Case. Cool characters, dialogue, setting, music, etc. But I don't think I really enjoyed the act of playing in the moment all that much, even if I'm glad I went through the experience and think about it fondly in retrospect. The title does do cool things with how it presents its walls of text. The game is always switching up the point of view in interesting and unexpected ways, framing the events of the game via strikingly different methods at times. In that sense, the game is about perception, how circumstances can be interpreted differently depending on the viewpoint. Once again, I think that's in keeping with a title that wants you to walk away with a subjective interpretation of what is trying to be said and even just what exactly happened. Even in games with a lot of text and large portions of limited interactivity though, I do usually prefer more of the story, message, and themes of a title to be rooted in some form of uniquely mechanical language than they are in Kentucky. And I have a stomach for a lot of dialogue. There's just something that works for me more about, say, something like 13 Sentinels, where I spend hours chatting with the characters, but once I'm fully invested, I'm thrust into a real-time strategy mech battle with them, where I care a lot about the outcome. Even navigating a flowchart to piece together a timeline of events in a story-focused series like Zero Escape presents a better use of the medium's strengths to tell a story, more so than the very passive dialogue trees available in Kentucky. But just because a game makes very simple use of the tools video games can offer for telling a story, doesn't mean it can't resonate with someone, or that a simple approach shouldn't be an option or attempted, because why not? I just don't know if I was completely sold on Kentucky's approach. I would like to recommend the game to people who might enjoy the setting, a cross-country journey throughout a lonely rural America, filled with quirky characters and lonely absorbing locations. But to be honest though, the game is so esoteric and immediately surreal that I didn't get as much of that American outback setting as I would have liked. For me, it's a tough sell, but if you're into eccentric dialogue and mysterious worlds, stuff much like the Silver Case, then you might get something out of this one. It's true that while I wasn't always engaged and some of the dialogue got so esoteric that my intentions started to seriously drift, there's no denying that at the end of each chapter I was usually left feeling something. Unease, nostalgia, sadness, hopefulness, some weird, indescribable mix. Just to get there, you might fall asleep first. My recommendation is that if it sounds interesting, if you like dialogue-heavy games where the appeal is rooted a lot in atmosphere and mood, give it a shot, but only if it's on sale. Because I can't help but think that even if you are the target demographic for this game, there's still a chance you may just end up playing it for an hour, getting bored, and not touching it again. It sucks to say that about something that's clearly been made with a lot of love, and has a lot of creativity put into it, but I just have to be honest about it. That said, I also think that there are going to be people out there who are going to love this experience. It's just going to be a bit of a gamble finding out if you're one of them.